Getting back to Austin again, you mentioned you were involved in the planning for the Long Center, and you've suggested that the Long Center is an important facility in the community. What's it like from the pit? What are the acoustics like when you stand in the pit and conduct opera? What's your general impression?
Well, we lucked out with the Long Center for a very small price tag. We got a very excellent medium size, I guess I'd call it. Not European standards, but North American standards, medium size home theater. For opera, it's around 2,300 seats. For symphonic, if the pit's got the extra chairs in it, it's around 2,400 seats. But distance from the back wall to the stage is minimal. It is a comfortable environment, and it's an excellent acoustic. We were lucky to have been the next project after Jaffe Holt, who were the acoustical engineers, had done the refurbishing of the Seattle Opera House for state. And they used two different types of technologies which they had not done before, which they incorporated in our theater. Those two have to do with, number one, having extra resonating areas behind where the wall is, on the side walls. And then the other issue is there's a sound permeated type of metal mesh instead of solid material underneath the balcony and the mezzanine. So actually sound can get through those areas a little bit more. It's not just a brick wall or a metal wall or a concrete wall. Those two factors, along with all the other experience that they had, plus there are, as many theaters have had over the past 25 years, there are banners that can be moved up and down on the sides of the wall and the back wall. There's 7 of them, and then there are some other in the resonating cavern above it that can deaden and or change the acoustical environment. When we've done operas that have dialogue, or when we've done operas that I wanted a little clearer, more classical environment, sound, and a little less reverberant, we've played with and found different amounts of bringing in these panels, and to a great effect. The University of Texas has given this community a lot over the years, but it's important for Austin to grow past that and have its own image and its own concept of itself. So I think it was very important for the cultural scene of a city of this size for the arts to pull themselves away from the university. The Bass Concert Hall was huge. It was close to 3,000 seats. It was not a great acoustical environment. There was not enough time available to us to produce our operas. So it was also time for our growth to sever that umbilical cord.
Let me ask you about the final opera of this season with the Austin Lyric Opera. It's a new piece, and I've been struck in the 5 or 6 years I've been in Austin. Usually 3 major productions a year by the company, but the choice of repertoire isn't always predictable. You do offbeat stuff that's well chosen so that it's reasonably accessible, but challenging in artistic ways too. I think a good example is the final opera of this season, a piece by Jonathan Dove called Flight. Could you tell us something about the piece?
Well, this piece was first done in late 90s for Glyndebourne, and it was immediately very well received. Jonathan is an extremely gifted composer whose musical vocabulary is very accessible to almost anybody. The other thing that's very interesting about it is it's kind of a comedy. I mean, it is a comedy, although there's a serious undertone to it, but the situations are fun, and there's a lot of enjoyment in his presentation of the theatrical aspects of the story, and that's not often found from contemporary composers who are doing opera. It it's harder to do comedy, actually. The piece is structured around some truisms. There was a gentleman who ended up being stuck in the Charles de Gaulle airport for over, I think, 17 years, amazingly, before he was able to get out. And there is a character called the refugee who is in a similar situation, but that's about as far as those similarities exist. If you saw also, I think it was called Terminal, or The Terminal Man, with Tom Hanks, there was a movie of the same type of situational issue. But basically, the opera centers around a 24-hour period in a terminal, an airport terminal, and different characters. There's only 10 people in 10 singing actors in the opera, and how they meet up together at this time and what they are being challenged in their lives with, and how they interrelate with their stories. And there's a bigger message in the 3-act opera that I think one comes away from. It is similar to contemporary drama in terms of that type of placement. There are far fewer arias. There's a lot of exposition, for example, in the first act. One of the things Jonathan is, he's a brilliant orchestrator. Brilliant orchestrator. The sounds from the orchestra are incredible, and he's extremely rhythmically driven in a complex meter sense. It's a little bit like the Rite of Spring, in terms of every other bar is a different tempo marking, and so there's a concentration and there's a difficulty for all involved that is hopefully not felt by the audience, but is certainly, I think, gives a very specific type of energy for we as performers in terms of trying to put it on. Very accessible musically, very rhythmic. But it's not, if someone is looking for grand opera, with arias. I mean, I have a dear friend who's on the board of the Met, and he always wants everything to be Verdi. And I'm going, but the art form has grown past that, and you must, I think, should open yourself to, and he says, I don't have to do anything. I said, okay, it's fine. I keep trying. But there are some incredibly immense ensembles where 8 of the singers are singing together. It's just a very, very brilliant piece. It's something, it was done in the United States in a number of places. I think the order was, it was first done in St. Louis, and so that was where the American premiere was, and then it was done in Boston, and then also done in Pittsburgh. So this is the type of repertoire that Austin has become a little bit known for doing. I mean, when I was choosing repertoire, there had been a lot of American works done, and so I felt we should go and look at other repertoire that still was of that venue. So what did I do? I did Elektra and Shostakovich Lady Macbeth, and then I went back to an American work, and we did an American premiere of a Philip Glass opera, Waiting for the Barbarians. Kevin has brought his own interest and background, and has brought repertoire such as Dialogue of the Carmelites, and last year L'Étoile by Chabré, and also Hans and Gretel, which is a more known work but still is not necessarily that well known. This year, Flight. So it's been an interesting growth. There is great desire and hunger for that type of repertoire from certain members of our audience, and then there are other members of our audience that only want to do bohème, bohème, bohème. That is a continual 21st century predicament for, I think, all opera companies.
Well, here's a sort of a desert island question for you as an opera conductor. You've done so much repertoire in so many places. Is there anything left? Is there anything when you lie awake at night and say, well, if I only have a couple of years left to conduct opera, I must do this opera? Are there such pieces left for you to conduct?
Yeah, there is still. The huge hole in my repertoire, from my point of view, in terms of what I think I have something to say in, is Wagner. I did concert versions of Parsifal. Start with the small and short ones first. And certainly have done a lot of the excerpts and arias and this type of stuff. I was, as I mentioned earlier, around the ring in a very impressionably young age. Doubt I'm going to get to do a ring, but it would still be nice to do some of the. We've talked about doing a Lohengrin here, which would be a huge undertaking for the company. We've talked about doing maybe one of the rings operas, for example, Rheingold. The company actually has done Walküre. So I would say in the area of the German repertoire, I would like to expand that more if I only had a few. I'd love to do a Tristan, for example, and I think besides it being long, the orchestration is the normal size, it's not the augmented size, and we could possibly produce that if given enough rehearsal.
Well, I hope in the near future that's part of our experience in Austin as well as your experience, because obviously you'd be excited to do it, and we'd be excited to hear it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure.